Close your eyes for a moment, and let the noise of the day fade away. The hurried footsteps, the endless voices, the glowing screens, they all begin to dissolve into the background. Like waves retreating into the sea, what remains now, in this quiet hour of night, is you and a story. Tonight, we are going to drift into the world of one of literature's most haunting and profound minds, Fyodor Dostoevsky, a man who walked through prisons, stared death in the face, and wandered the frozen wastelands of Siberia. And yet, from these depths of suffering, he drew wisdom so powerful that it continues to echo across centuries. But do not worry, this is not a harsh tale, not a storm to disturb your rest. Instead, it is a gentle journey into the heart of his philosophy, told slowly, softly, as if each word were a lullaby for the restless soul. We will not rush. We will not argue or debate. We will simply listen, as if Dostoevsky himself were whispering his darkest wisdom to you in the calm of the night. His philosophy is not one of easy comfort. He does not promise us happiness without struggle, or peace without pain. No, Dostoevsky believed that only by entering the shadows of suffering could one discover the flickering light of redemption, that in the silence of despair one might hear the faint heartbeat of love, forgiveness, and faith. So, as you lie back, let your breathing slow. Inhale deeply. Exhale gently. Let your body sink into rest. This story is a lantern for the night, steady, quiet, unwavering, and together we will step into Dostoevsky's life, and from there, into the wisdom hidden within the darkness. Dostoevsky's life is a story of suffering. To understand Dostoevsky's philosophy, we must first drift through the story of his life. Because his wisdom did not come from distant theories or abstract reasoning, it was carved into him by hardship, by the cruel hand of fate, and by the strange grace that comes only after surviving the darkest nights. Fyodor Dostoevsky was born in 1821, in Moscow, the second son of a stern, troubled father and a gentle, religious mother. From the very beginning, he lived between two worlds, one of cold discipline and one of tender faith. His childhood was not without joy, but it carried the shadows of poverty, strictness, and an early confrontation with mortality when his mother died young. As he grew, Dostoevsky became a young man of promise, with a sharp intellect and a sensitive heart. But his life took a dramatic turn in 1849. At the age of 27, he was arrested for participating in a circle of intellectuals who dared to discuss social reform, literature, and new political ideas. What seemed like harmless conversation to us today was, under the gaze of the Tsar, considered dangerous rebellion. He and his companions were condemned to death. Imagine that, standing before a firing squad, knowing the seconds of your life were counting down. Dostoevsky himself once described those moments of waiting as the longest, most intense experience of his life. The soldiers raised their rifles, and then, in a cruel twist, a messenger announced that the Tsar had granted a last-minute pardon. It was not freedom, but exile. The execution was staged as punishment, and instead of death, Dostoevsky was sent to Siberia for years of hard labor. Exile in Siberia was no gentle retreat. It was freezing, brutal, dehumanizing. He slept in crowded barracks filled with criminals, endured the bitter cold with thin rags for clothing, and worked until his body nearly collapsed. Yet in this suffering, something profound happened. Dostoevsky wrote later that it was in those frozen years that he came to understand the depths of the human soul. He saw cruelty and despair, but he also saw flashes of compassion, dignity, and faith that could survive even the harshest chains. This tension between darkness and light, suffering and grace would become the core of his philosophy and the heartbeat of his novels, unlike thinkers who build systems in quiet studies. Dostoevsky's ideas were born out of the mud, the frost, and the terror of near death. When he finally returned from Siberia, he was no longer simply a young writer. He was a man transformed by suffering, and from this transformation, he would write some of the most profound explorations of freedom, morality, evil, and redemption that the world has ever known. As you listen, let your body rest deeper. Let Dostoevsky's story wash over you like a slow, dark river. The lessons he drew from suffering were not meant to disturb, but to remind us that even in our lowest valleys, there is meaning to be found, and perhaps even peace. Freedom and responsibility. If there is one idea that haunted Dostoevsky throughout his life, it was freedom. Not the kind of freedom politicians argue about, not freedom written in laws or constitutions, but the inner, spiritual freedom of the human soul. For Dostoevsky, freedom was both a blessing and a burden. Imagine it this way. We are born into a world without certainty. We long for someone to tell us what to do, to remove the weight of choice from our shoulders. Yet, Dostoevsky believed, true dignity comes only when we carry the burden ourselves, when we dare to choose, knowing that our choices have consequences. In the Brothers Karamazov, his greatest novel, Dostoevsky gave voice to this idea through the story of the Grand Inquisitor. In this tale, Christ returns to earth, and the church authorities arrest him. Why? Because, the Inquisitor argues, Christ gave humanity too much freedom. Left to themselves, most people do not want freedom, they want bread, security, and someone to command them freedom. The Inquisitor says, is too heavy. It crushes the soul. Better to take it away and give people comfort instead. But Dostoevsky does not accept this. His characters wrestle, suffer, and even collapse under the weight of freedom, but they also rise. Freedom is not safe, but it is the only path to true humanity. Without freedom, there is no love, no meaning, no authentic life. This is the paradox. Freedom is terrifying, yet it is also sacred. Dostoevsky understood that we sometimes envy the certainty of systems that tell us exactly what to believe, exactly how to live. But he warned us such certainty comes at the cost of our soul. To live as a full human being is to embrace responsibility for our own choices, even when they lead us into darkness. He once wrote, "What is hell? I maintain that it is the suffering of being unable to love." And for him, love itself was only possible through freedom. To choose love freely despite pain, despite risk, was the highest act a human could perform. As you listen, you may feel the weight of these ideas pressing gently, like the heaviness of a blanket. Let that heaviness soothe you, not frighten you. Because in Dostoevsky's world, even the burden of freedom points towards something higher. It reminds us that we are not machines, not puppets, but beings capable of rising beyond despair, capable of choosing love, even in a world that tempts us to give up. The problem of evil and suffering. Of all the questions that troubled Dostoevsky, none was more agonizing than this. Why is there suffering in the world? He did not ask it lightly. He asked it with the eyes of someone who had known prison, poverty, and humiliation. He asked it with the heart of a man who saw children starving in the streets of St. Petersburg, who knew the cruelty of men, and who wrestled with the silence of God. In the Brothers Karamazov, one of the characters, Ivan, poses the most famous form of this question. He does not object to suffering in general adults. He says, might deserve it. But what of the innocent? What of children who are beaten, abandoned, and destroyed before they can even speak? Ivan insists that no harmony, no heavenly kingdom, could ever justify such cruelty. He declares that if such suffering is the price of eternal order, then he returns his ticket. Dostoevsky did not give easy answers. In fact, he refused to solve the riddle of suffering with neat explanations. Instead, he let his characters struggle, as he himself struggled. But he did point towards something, a kind of redemption found not in abstract philosophy, but in compassion, in love, in sharing the burden of another's pain. For Dostoevsky, suffering was not meaningless. It could break a person, yes, but it could also transform them. He saw suffering as the crucible in which the human soul was tested. Through it, people might awaken to humility, to mercy, to a deeper understanding of what it means to love. One of his characters says, "Love in reality is a harsh and dreadful thing compared to love in dreams." This line captures the essence of his view. Love is not just sweet words or fleeting emotions, it is the willingness to endure hardship for the sake of another. When you think of Dostoevsky's world, do not imagine a soft paradise without pain. Imagine instead a battlefield of the heart, where every soul must decide how to respond to suffering, with bitterness or with compassion. That choice, for Dostoevsky, was the heart of philosophy itself. Faith, doubt, and redemption. Dostoevsky's entire philosophy lived in the tension between two poles, faith and doubt. He was never a simple believer, nor a pure skeptic. He stood on the razor's edge between the two, peering into the abyss of despair while straining toward the light of hope. His characters reflect this struggle vividly. Ivan Karamazov is the voice of doubt, refusing to accept a God who allows innocent suffering. His brother Alyosha, by contrast, embodies a quiet, radiant faith, not because he ignores suffering, but because he dares to believe that love can redeem it. Between them stands Dmitri, torn, impulsive, full of passion and contradiction, the human soul caught in the storm. Dostoevsky knew that faith without doubt is shallow, but doubt without faith leads to despair. He saw that the most meaningful human life is lived in the space between, where we wrestle with questions, stumble, fall, and sometimes rise again. He himself once wrote, "If someone proved to me that Christ is outside the truth, and if it really was so that the truth lay outside Christ, then I should choose to remain with Christ rather than with the truth." In this strange, paradoxical confession, we see his heart. Faith for Dostoevsky was not about logic alone. It was about trust, about love, about the leap into something greater than reason. Redemption, in his novels, rarely comes through argument. It comes through compassion, through the trembling forgiveness of a sinner, through the embrace of a broken man who still chooses to love. Even the most wretched characters, murderers, thieves, liars, are not beyond redemption in Dostoevsky's world. For him, grace was always possible, even in the darkest pit. And so, his philosophy whispers to us, you will doubt, you will despair, you will suffer, but do not think this means you are lost. In fact, it is in the very act of stumbling, of reaching out for a love in the midst of your weakness, that you may find redemption. As you let these words sink in, you may notice your body becoming heavier, your breath slower. Faith and doubt, love and despair, they swirl like clouds in the night sky, and perhaps, like Dostoevsky, you may find a quiet comfort in simply gazing at the mystery, resting in the knowledge that even in the shadows, the possibility of light remains. The underground man and the rebellion of the self. Among Dostoevsky's most unsettling creations is the figure known as the underground man. From his short novel Notes from Underground, This character is bitter, lonely, and painfully self-aware. He lives in isolation, consumed by spite, unable to love, yet unable to stop thinking about the world he rejects. Why does this strange figure matter? Because he embodies a truth Dostoevsky feared, that human beings are not driven only by reason, or by the pursuit of happiness, but also by a dark and irrational desire to rebel. The underground man insists that if someone built a utopia, a perfect society where all needs were met, all happiness guaranteed, human beings would eventually smash it to pieces. Why? Simply to prove that they are free for him. Freedom is so essential to human identity that we would rather destroy our own paradise than surrender our ability to choose, even if that choice leads to pain. This is the rebellion of the self, the refusal to be reduced to a predictable machine. We are not equations, we are not programs, we are creatures of will. And sometimes that will drives us to act against our own interests, simply to assert that we can. Dostoevsky did not admire the underground man, he pitied him. This figure shows what happens when freedom is twisted inward, when it becomes self-destructive and corrosive. And yet, the underground man also reveals a terrifying truth, that inside each of us lurks a capacity for spite, for sabotage, for a rebellion so deep it might even turn against ourselves. But here, too, Dostoevsky offers a strange form of comfort. By staring into the darkness of the human soul, he reminds us that we are more than rational calculators. We are unpredictable, chaotic, and yes, capable of cruelty, but also capable of mercy, forgiveness, and astonishing love. The underground man is a mirror. He shows us the danger of closing ourselves off from love, of sinking into isolation and bitterness, but by seeing him clearly, perhaps we awaken to the possibility of choosing another path. As these thoughts settle into your mind, you may feel their weight, but also their strange gentleness. Like a distant echo, the voice of the underground man fades, leaving behind the quiet reminder, even in rebellion, even in spite, the soul longs for something more. Dostoevsky's legacy: darkness and light. Dostoevsky's world is not gentle. It is not tidy. It is full of shadows, full of moral chaos, full of the most terrifying possibilities that the human mind can imagine. And yet, it is also full of light. His legacy, the wisdom that flows quietly through his novels, is this: to live fully is to embrace both darkness and light. To understand human nature, he showed us suffering and evil, but also love, mercy, and the courage to rise again. Even in the bleakest passages, there is a strange invitation. Look carefully, breathe slowly, and notice the small flickers of hope. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov moves through guilt, despair, and almost unbearable torment, but in the end, through confession, humility, and human connection, he finds a glimmer of redemption. This is the rhythm of Dostoevsky's philosophy. Fall into darkness, yes, but know that light is possible. Modern thinkers, psychologists, and storytellers still draw from his work. They see in Dostoevsky the truth that humans are complex, messy, and contradictory. We are capable of cruelty, yet also capable of beauty. We can destroy, yet we can also heal. In this tension lies the very essence of what it means to be alive. As you listen now, allow these ideas to flow over you like the slow, steady waves of the night. Do not rush to understand. Do not feel pressured to solve the riddles. Simply rest in them. Let the stories of suffering, rebellion, doubt, and redemption wash over your mind, softening it, slowing it, preparing it for rest. For in Dostoevsky's philosophy, as in sleep itself, there is a lesson. The mind needs to wander through darkness to fully appreciate the light, and the heart too. needs stillness to recognize its own capacity for love. Now that we have wandered through the shadows and light of Dostoevsky's world, let us linger a little longer gently, softly on what his philosophy can teach us in our own lives. These are not rigid rules or moral commands, they are whispers of wisdom, meant to be absorbed slowly, like the quiet rhythm of your breath as you prepare for sleep. 1. Embrace the shadows. Dostoevsky teaches us that suffering, doubt, and fear are not enemies to be avoided. They are parts of life that carry meaning. Tonight, as you lie down, allow yourself to acknowledge any lingering worries or tensions. Don't push them away, simply observe them, like clouds drifting across the night sky. In doing so, you honor your own humanity. 2. Responsibility is freedom even when it feels heavy. Choosing your actions consciously is a gift. Dostoevsky shows us that true freedom comes with responsibility. Before sleep, consider the small choices of your day, the moments when you acted with kindness, patience, or love. Let those quiet victories settle in your mind, giving you a gentle sense of control and calm. 3. Compassion transcends darkness. No matter how grim the world may seem, love and compassion remain our most powerful tools. Think of someone you care for, or even a small act of kindness you experienced today. Let that thought warm your heart, like a tiny lantern glowing in the night. 4. Doubt is part of growth. It's okay to question, to wonder, to feel uncertain. Dostoevsky's characters teach us that doubt is not weakness, it is the soil in which faith, understanding, and insight grow. As you drift towards sleep, remind yourself that questions can rest alongside you, without demanding answers tonight. 5. Redemption is always possible, no matter what has happened today, yesterday, or years ago. There is always the possibility of renewal. Sleep itself is a form of redemption, a nightly pause, a gentle chance to reset, to start again with calm awareness. Embrace the quiet power of rest as a sacred act, one that nurtures both mind and soul. Let these lessons sink in slowly. Feel the weight of your body on the mattress. Hear the soft rhythm of your own breathing. Know that, like Dostoevsky's stories, life is a mixture of shadows and light, and that within you lies the capacity to meet both with courage, compassion, and quiet understanding. Drifting into stillness with Dostoevsky. As the night deepens round you, let your mind rest in the quiet spaces between thought and dream. You have wandered through Dostoevsky's world tonight, through prisons and Siberian frost, through rebellion, doubt, and the shadowed corners of the human heart. You have seen suffering, freedom, love, and redemption, and now you can let them settle softly, like fallen leaves on a still river. Remember this gentle truth: darkness is not to be feared, for it is in the shadows that wisdom quietly grows. Compassion, responsibility, and love are the lanterns that illuminate our paths. Even when the world feels heavy, and in every moment of doubt, there is the possibility of grace. In every night of struggle, the promise of dawn. As you lie here, let your body sink deeper into the mattress. Feel the rhythm of your breath, slow and steady. Let your thoughts drift by without resistance, like clouds moving across the night sky. Know that you are safe, that you are whole, and that even in quiet darkness, light persists. Tonight, carry with you the deepest wisdom of Dostoevsky, that life, in all its complexity, need not disturb your peace. You can meet its shadows with gentle awareness, embrace its trials with quiet courage, and allow your heart to rest in the calm of compassion. Close your eyes now. Breathe in and breathe out, and let the weight of the day dissolve into nothingness. Drift softly, drift gently, and sleep.